my friends. Thank you so much, Eric, for driving, coming down, flying from Nashville, man, being a part of this. I got to interview Eric on Makers and Mystics a while back, and so you can go back and find that episode if you haven't heard it already, but we had an incredible conversation. Yes, thanks so much. Yes. Well, listen, we have just a series of perspective short talks this morning, and then we get to do a Makers and Mystics live with some very special guests that you get to hear from. And I'm going to go ahead and dive into my talk because mine's going to be super short, said every lying preacher in the world. That's why I do these 15-minute talks, because I figured out if you tell people they've got 15 to 20 minutes, they cut out all the fluff, except I'm not doing that now. My talk is called Learning to Dream Again. And I want to start by saying this. The root of despair is the suspicion that God is not good. And the value of a dream is in the dreaming. The worth of a dream is not contingent on its coming to pass, because the process of our own transformation carries beyond any material form. And when tragedy occurs in the world, or when injustice runs rampant, when disappointment takes root in our lives, when our dreams die, we can be quick to conclude that God must not be good. This is the root of despair. And I know that each of us carry dreams that have been planted there from eternity. And I know that each of us have also gone through our own disappointments, our own loss of dreams, our own inability to dream, honestly. When we carry something for so long that we love, that we nurture, that we believe in, that we feel like it's from heaven, and then it doesn't happen in the timing we thought, or in the way we thought, or at all in some cases. And it's in those moments that we can begin to be suspicious about the goodness of God. But I've come to flip that narrative on its head, and rather looking at my disappointments and looking at the loss of a dream as an indication that God is not good. Instead, I ask, why do we experience any goodness at all? Why does beauty exist to begin with? Why does kindness exist? Why do we experience joy or the mystery of laughter? And what about those unexplainable interventions and seemingly divine coincidences like the ones I shared last night about the clouds? And I'm sure you all have those synchronicities in your life as well. Why do we experience these strange and surprising connections and resolutions that we could not have accomplished on our own? How do we get out of situations that naturally we couldn't have ever escaped? If these acts of kindness and beauty, ridiculous kindness, ridiculous goodness, if these don't flow outward from the heart of a loving creator whose benevolence is active in our lives, then where do they come from? If the death of a dream is an indicator that God is not good, how do we explain the ridiculous, reckless, severe mercy that we also experience in life? And so when I say it's time for us to begin learning to dream again, what I mean is that it is time to reconnect to the primal goodness that exists at the heart of life. And I also want to say that It's easy to talk about learning to dream again, but when you are in the midst of really intense pain and confusion and disappointment, it's hard to think about that. And so I want to validate the pain that you feel. And that too can become worship. Our pain can become worship. Our lament can become worship. The darkest places of our disappointment. See, doubt is not a bad thing. Doubt can either lead you deeper into relationship with God, or doubt can lead you away from God. I'm not suggesting that we just have a happy, clappy spirituality. I'm actually saying the opposite, that doubt can become an agent of worship, that we can actually enter deeper into the presence if we bring our own doubts. Rather than letting our doubts about the goodness of God lead to despair, what if they led to an even deeper intimacy? I've learned to let my doubts and my disappointments become worship. So what is our posture toward life? Are we ready and poised for the other shoe to drop when something good happens? Or are we standing with our hands open, just like those sculptures out in the gallery? Those sculptures in the gallery are such a prophetic symbol. They're just there saying, let there be, with hands open. I want to climb higher than my own thinking. I want to transform my thinking to expect the unexpected, the miraculous. If I relied upon the unexplainable, unresolved, inconceivable examples of evil that we see in the world, or even my own personal failures, because I have many, or situations in the world to dictate whether life is worth living, then I would have no reason to dream again at all. We all have justifiable reasons to hold our disappointments and our lost hopes. But I dare to believe that kindness is greater than despair and that beauty will save the world. And in the face of all of the atrocities that are happening in the earth, even as we're here together, I dare to say it's time to dream again. You know, it's easy to think that in times of crisis, and we'll talk about this in the panel a little bit later, it's easy in those times to think that the role of the artist is not necessary. How can we make art and talk about beauty when there's genocide in the world? How can we make art and talk about beauty and sing songs about the goodness of God when there is all kinds of atrocity and injustice in the world? But I dare to say that it is because of the atrocities in the world that the ministry of the artist is needed now perhaps more than ever. That we are those who can help one another remember what it means to be human, help one another remember what it means to reflect heaven, help one another remember that there is something greater than the current pain that we feel or that we see in the world. We as artists are the architects of hope. I will say that over and over. I don't care how repetitious it is. We are the architects of hope for this generation and the generations to come. That doesn't mean that our art has to be happy clappy. It means that our doubt and our lament is put inside the framework of the greater reality of the goodness of God. Tears have carved a ravine through the soil of my cheeks. They run downward to find my lips. They carry the history of my loss, my mistakes. They carry the miscarried dreams of my youth and the empty air of impending age. And yet, I will not put a period where God puts a comma. I have determined now to laugh each day until the saline pools in furrows of laugh lines like ley lines, nurturing the roots of a blossoming future, telling the stories of my life from heaven's perspective. Hope has the final word. Hope has the final word. I'll end with a story. 2020, dare I mention that year? My wife Sarah and I, we had been doing the Breath in the Clay since 2014. We did our first one. Was anybody here at that one way back when? Yeah, we got a couple of hands. Look at this. The OGs. In 2017, I believe it was, somewhere we sold our business and gave everything we had to do the Breath in the Clay. We funded it ourselves, and we had 3 years to get it off the ground, and we worked really hard for this dream. And 2020 was our launch year. I had the book deal. I had the agent that was putting me on tour to do speaking gigs. I was writing music compositions, and we were doing this. We were doing retreats, gathering a team of incredible people with us. We had 650 people coming to that Breath in Clay in 2020. We had interns from Canada and other parts of the United States living in Greensboro with us. And the Breath in the Clay was set the week that COVID hit. My friend Joel McCarrow was a poet from Australia. He got on the plane in Melbourne and the world was normal. He got off the plane in San Francisco and the world had shut down. He was stuck in the airport for 3 days and had to turn around and get back on the plane. I'll be honest with you, our whole world fell apart. My whole world fell apart. I went into a personal crisis. Not because of that. We actually held strong and did some beautiful things and helped people go through this. But the more that unfolded, the more that it actually unearthed things in my own life that I needed to deal with in my own heart. And so the next 3 years of my life, I actually, in some ways I was forced to lay it down. In other ways I chose to lay it down. And I focused on rebuilding my relationship with God, rebuilding my relationship with my wife, rebuilding my relationship with my kids, rebuilding my relationship with my friends. My identity was extracted out of my art so that I could now serve this community and serve my art without it being an idol that took my heart. That's a sermon for another day. But the past 3 years of my life have been a desert season of intentional, monastic, gut-wrenching, tears, weeping, rejoicing, laying my life before God. And so when I say that we're standing together in a miracle, I actually really mean it. I laid the Breath in the Clay down and I said, Father, I'm actually happy and I'm okay. I don't ever have to do that again. And he said, we're not finished. In fact, we're just getting started. He said, I'd like you to learn to dream again. Don't put a period where I put a comma. Hope has the final word. Do you want to do the Breath in the Clay again? I do. And so I want to dare to say to you that whatever your story is of loss, whatever pain and unexplainable things that you go through in your life, when you walk through hell, just don't stop. Just keep walking. When you walk through hell, keep walking. Don't stop. Let's learn to dream again together, shall we? Thanks, guys.